So we're going to continue talking about communication, and tonight we're going to be talking about avoiding communication roadblocks. So the ability to be open and honest about one's feelings is important. Most people feel vulnerable when they share their pain. If that person feels invalidated, ridiculed, or rejected by you at that time, they may never open up to you again. And then you have lost the opportunity to make a deep connection with that person, and they won't gain the relief and objectivity which they needed. So someone comes to you and shares something with you, and we're going to go through what those roadblocks are, and you invalidate them in some way. You've lost that opportunity for closeness, and they feel awful. The following communication roadblocks shut people off. While some of them may be useful at times, they should not be used when an individual is expressing a deep feeling. So let's go through the list. Analyzing. I know why you didn't show up on time. You have a deep unconscious need to be rejected. So someone comes and says, I missed my plane and I feel really bad, and you go, well, I know why. You love doing this kind of thing, right? We often do this with our kids more than anybody else, but we can do it with anybody. Arguing. You don't really feel like that. That's not the way you see it. Or no wonder you're in such pain. Why didn't you take my advice? So those are common ones. But often I hear this in couple counseling. Someone says, I'm really upset. And they go, I don't think you really were. I think you were. And you go like, really? Commanding. So someone tells you something, leave that job. We used to talk about it in gender differences. You know, a wife would come home and she'd say, I had a horrible day at work. All she wants to do is talk about her day, and the husband says, leave that job. I told you to leave the job. So that's a communication roadblock. Or go on vacation. Or cheer up. Counseling. Now I'll just tell you what to do. And then they start to first put an ad in the newspaper. Or I really think what you should do is get divorced. People feel the need to tell you what to do. So these are all communication roadblocks. You go and want to talk about something, and you've hardly finished, and someone's saying, I know what you should do. Or diagnosing. I know exactly what's wrong. It's your hormones, the weather, vitamin deficiency. I love these. Lack of calcium. People have all these things about why things go wrong. You know, your mood is like this because it's, I've got this great multivitamin. And that may be true, it's irrelevant. The person wants to talk, and you're going, have you seen the latest multivitamin? Or this is the reason that you feel that way. And that stops the person from sharing what they want to share, because you're not telling them.
What irritation.
Exactly. Yeah. Generalizing. All women make too many demands on their husbands. All men do whatever they can to get out of being with their kids. Now, it might not seem like a communication roadblock, but it is. So you go to a friend and you go, I'm really upset because my husband didn't look after the kids last night. It's your feeling about, and they go, all men do that. That's a communication roadblock. Again, it may or may not be true. That's irrelevant. It's that kind of thing. Or all children that age do that. Or lots of people have kids with ADHD. So that dismisses what the person is trying to share with you. Guilt tripping. How can you be so unhappy when Hashem has given you so much? You're so selfish and ungrateful. That's your whole problem. So there's that kind of, you've got so much and you're coming and whinging. It's a first world problem, that kind of thing that people are told. So I'm really worried. Someone was saying they're worried they have to move out of their flat. I heard this recently, and someone said, do you know how many people are displaced in Israel at the moment? But it means you want to move out of your flat. It doesn't mean they're not, but it's in that moment of communication, it doesn't, you're not able to share. Maximizing. How can you be so calm about this? How can you be so blind? It's far more serious than you think. And this I've seen is a very common problem, actually, where some people won't tell, where I often hear it is, often it's a parent, adult children won't tell their adult parents, because they go, if I go and I tell my mom, my child had a fall, they go, oh my God, I'm sure it's broken, it's really much more serious, and they make it much bigger. So then you don't want to tell them because they're going to make it much bigger than it is. So we have to manage our own anxiety about things. Or minimizing. I can't see why you're so upset, it's really nothing. Or be happy. Or 10 years from now it won't matter. It's nothing. It'll be nothing one day. Or one-upping. That wouldn't have bothered me one bit. And I've had people do this. It's the most horrible thing when you go, something was upset, and they go, oh, well, it wouldn't bother me. Or I did that, but I was okay with it. So you feel very put down. Over-identifying. You don't have to go on. I know exactly how you feel. Or the way people say that I find really annoying is when people go, been there, done that. So you're like really upset, you organize. Like Sarah, I remember talking about organising, my father's tombstone or something, and it's very difficult. Like, been there, done that. Yeah. And even if you have been there, done that, in that moment that person is sharing with you, it's about sharing with that person, allowing them to share. It's not about the facts. Philosophizing. Well, life is no bowl of cherries. And people do that. Life is hard. It's hard for everybody, that kind of thing. Probing. Now, give me the real underlying reason why you feel like that. Reassuring. Don't be upset. Everything's going to be fine. A lot of people look for reassurance, and often we give reassurance. I know someone who went through that and they were okay. They survived. So reassurance doesn't work. You want validation, not reassurance. Even though you know it's going to work out, maybe later on in the discussion. But when people come and they want to share something in that moment, the idea is to just validate what they're saying. Self-disclosing. You think you have it bad. Let me tell you what I've been going through. So I know a lot of people like this. When you start telling them something, their problems are much worse. And you feel totally dismissed. Shaming. How could you have been so stupid? You know what? You're just feeling sorry for yourself. Or it's all your fault, you've brought it upon yourself. Simplifying. With kids, it's all a power struggle. Just don't ever give in. That's all there is to it. So you've got a very complicated kid, that's climbing the walls, and someone goes, just be strict. That's worked for me, that kind of. Warning and threatening. If you don't act immediately, I can't begin to tell you what terrible consequences they're going to be. So note all the above put the person in pain in a one-down position and the receiver in a one-up position. This inhibits the flow of communication, which is best achieved from a position of mutual respect and concern. So the idea is, and this is what we teach in couple counseling or mediation of two people, is that when someone talks, you ask the person who's listening to reflect back what they heard, not answer what they heard. So let's say someone says, the wife says, I was really upset when you didn't wash the coffee mug. And the normal response is, well, I take out the garbage. Or last week you didn't wash your coffee mug. Or, whereas the answer is, so then I say, just reflect what you said. I'm giving a silly example. And then the husband says, so what you're saying is you were upset when I didn't. And not in a tone. So I'm trying to, and sometimes they get it wrong. They say, they'll make up something else, and you've got to ask the person, is that what you were saying? No, that wasn't what I was saying. So the person has to keep reflecting it until the speaker feels that they have been heard. And that's what validation is. Okay, I get it now. You don't like it. You didn't like that I left the coffee mug on the table. It doesn't matter if I only did it once. It doesn't matter any of that, but that's what you're upset about. And then it can be swapped, and the other person says. So then when people start feeling heard, you can then very often respond to what they're saying and more likely reach a resolution. The reason often resolution isn't reached is because they're not hearing. She says, I wasn't happy you left the cup for her reasons, and he goes, well, I'm doing the garbage. And it's not actually meeting what the other person is trying to say. So if anybody ever says anything, it is always a good idea, we're back to the pause button, is to just ask them, is this what you're saying? If someone comes and they're really upset and they go, Ma, are you doing this? Or whoever, you're doing this, and you actually go, okay, let me just understand. I can see you're in pain. Is what you're saying that I let you down when this? And they go, no, it's not what you did. And then you say, okay, let me try again. Is this what you're saying? And even if you get it wrong, even with younger kids, they don't mind as long as they see you're attempting to. So they come home from cricket, and they moan about the game, and you go, oh, I can see you're upset about the game because you lost. And they go, no, I'm not upset because you lost. So I go, well, I can see you're upset. Is it because you didn't get your right position, or what is it? just the fact that you working on understanding it, the person feels validated. And most of the time you'll eventually get it. Sometimes you just won't. But the fact you've taken the time, instead of going, oh, it's nothing, or it's just a cricket game, or in 10 years' time you won't matter, or no one in our family is good at cricket, all the things we come out with to try and make that person feel better, it doesn't make them feel better.
Do you think most people just don't, we've forgotten to listen?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people just talk and actually don't listen.
That's true. It's terrible, actually.
People do it all the time.
Do you think it's a selfishness? I find people are really poor listeners. It's true. It's true. I think it's also made worse because of the communication now and being on the phone all the time, and people have much shorter attention spans. And I often find that I'm in the middle of a sentence and people have just moved on to the next topic.
And start their own story.
Yeah. And exactly like this, you'll be starting something and, oh, I've done that, and it's all about them. Maybe it is selfishness, but people are very poor listeners. And Covey, in his 7 habits, the way he describes it, one of his 7 habits is seek first to understand before you seek to be understood. Once you know what that person is saying, then you've got a chance at being understood yourself.
Maybe it's just this big ego thing, like media and everything else. Like, I'm more important, so you should listen to me, or, because I feel a lot of people just feel they are self-important. Ego.
But maybe it's because we spend so much time communicating with not face to face.
No, I'm saying face to face, like the person will say, but I've done really well in business, so you should do what I've done, or.
Yeah.
But I'm saying because, we in a situation now, and I wonder how it'll be with our kids, because we see it at school, there's so much less face-to-face interface. So when you're actually doing something and it's electronic, there's no one there to respond to you. So you can just go on and on and on as much as you want and say what you want. And it's like, we even find it difficult now to get kids to stop and put their hand up and not butt in. We're like, it's not all about you. You don't just wait your turn. There's just no ability to just hang on with your thought and wait until it's appropriate to say what you need to say.
Look, I'm sure there are many, many reasons. Covey wrote this in the end of the late 80s. I think there are many reasons, and obviously I think it's been made worse by society. But I think that one of them has been the preoccupation with self. And we're talking about it, how kids today expect to have their own bedrooms, their own devices, their own bathrooms, and they don't want to share. And many of us grew up sharing bedrooms. And you have to learn, back to what I was saying earlier, to make space for another person. And it's actually a very Hasidic idea. We say that if God is everywhere, how did he create the world? He's infinite and he can do that. But the idea is, they say, he contracted himself, tzimtzum, to make space for the world. And it's a prototype that if you want to create a world, meaning having relationships in a family, you need to be able to contract yourself, be humble, make space for another person. And making space is sometimes, even if you're in a rush, someone's come to you, give them the time to listen to what they're saying. Doesn't always have to be about you, or make yours, mine is better, or just that idea of it's fine, I can contract myself, make the space for that person, as you were saying, give them the space. It's a really big thing that people don't know how to share in so many ways. And this sounds so old, but little things, how we used to watch TV, right? We all had to have a consensus. There was one TV in our lounge.
One program.
So there wasn't much conflict. Or the lines. What was the test pattern? But we all used to watch Dallas together or something together. And it was a lot of fun, and we had shared. And now, sometimes go to restaurants and every kid at the table has got their own device. They're not interacting.
Even the little kids.
Yeah, they're at a restaurant table and they're not even focusing on their food.
But I think that's what I was referring to.
Yeah.
You're so used to being in your own space, in your own world. It's like those worlds were not complete before devices. When you were sitting on your own, you were by yourself. You had to talk to somebody or interact with somebody to have some go-between. Now your own little world is a self-contained world because you're doing something virtually at the end of the day. I mean, I find myself doing it sometimes and I get angry. We'll sit down after dinner and something will come up on TV and Mark will maybe want to watch his soccer. So I go to my phone and I'm like, we're sitting next to each other. He's watching soccer, but I'm
And in a
scrolling.
restaurant, you see couples,
You know.
they're both on their phone.
What's very interesting, we went to a restaurant in the city a few weeks ago. Jared and Tori took us and they take your phones as you walk in.
Really?
They put it in a wooden box with your lock and they went
That's
back to you
very
when you pay
cute.
your bill. That's what they do.
Very cute. Do they pay you more for that, or do you get a discount for that?
No,
But it's a free service.
Warren will say that I can't have my phone, but he can because his could be a business call.
Could be a bit.
yeah, well, exactly.
Rena, don't you think in a way, like Victorian era children, it was very strict. So even my grandmother grew up in East Berlin where children ate with the nanny in the kitchen, they didn't eat with the parent. They weren't allowed to address the parent unless they were spoken to first. So there was a strictness, and now people tell their children you can be anything you want. You can be the brightness if you want. You can be a doctor even if the kids are like you too.
Yeah.
You tell them you can be what you, and they just think they're so important.
I think there's this whole thing about lack of resilience and that inability
They
to
can't.
fail.
They can't bar two children at the same time.
Yeah.
Our daughters-in-law, they can't get a meal on the table if they've got one baby. They're hopeless.
So Michelle's children not eat then. Did your friends not eat once you had number one?
Oh my goodness, I've got a macaroni who cooks for you.
No, you
you're
and yours.
full.
Did you not eat for how many years you had your babies?
You're feeding your
I don't
phone.
know if you ever went
meal
shopping
on the
with Michelle.
table every single day. But I'm saying the new people can't, the young girls.
This is why we need a group. I'm definitely not sharing this share. I'm turning it off. But this is why you need a group because